In the new world of Abexilas, far off in the southernmost reaches of the known world, lies a small and isolated tribal society, deep in the swampy jungle of the southeastern continent of Kejafros. For the better part of 4 months, this small collection of players have been conducting one of the most unique experiments in Minecraft civilization history, attempting to simulate the lives of an actual prehistoric society. This idea, conceived as a funny concept between a small group, has evolved into a beast of its own, recreating the gradual evolution of societies of early man, and the effects that could be brought about by the future introduction of modern isolated tribal settlements, akin to those like the North Sentinelese. So please, join me as we examine the complex landscape, history and lives of the small tribe of Lachawaka. This is all real history which took place on the Stoneworks Minecraft server world of Abexilas. This world is fresh, having only begun a few months back, and the history of groups such as Lachawaka is still being written. So take the opportunity to join now to carve your place in Minecraft history at the IP play.stoneworks.gg. With that being said, let's explore the story of Lachawaka. In order to end up where they did today, the Lachawakans had a long chain of unique events that resulted in their deviation from the rest of global societies. Their tale began towards the end of the last global ice age roughly 3,000 to 4,000 years ago. While the rough dates and locations of origin vary, the Lachawakan trace common lineage to other Abexilas native humans of the Asari clade, who migrated from the colder southern regions of the southeast continent deeper into the interior. These Proto-Asari groups held a unique oral tradition that dated back as far as 15,000 years ago, that the Lachawakans would hold on to as they drifted further apart from the rest of the Asari groups. This occurred early on in the northern migrations, a theory supported by the proximity of their historical tribal territory to the estimated origin point of the migrations. Stories involve topics such as the heroes, wars, fables, and histories, including the story of the domestication of the dog, which have continued in a similar style to original Proto-Asari tradition, which Lachawakans insist their direct ancestors accomplished in the millennia before agricultural civilization. However, as a result of their early separation from other people groups, the Lachawakans adopted a much more conservative and arguably primitive system. For example, their language, known as Ugg, is an inherently conservative yet highly derived form of speech, and has a very limited written form. Instead of written word, language is interpreted often through word of mouth, or through interpretive artwork such as stone carving, nicknamed rockworking, which is where the Lachawakan name originates from, or through cave painting using paints made up of the likes of commonly found earth pigments, charcoal, seared bone, and ground calcite. Animal blood could also be used, and occasionally animal skin such as pig skin are utilized as a substitute for canvas. Lachawakan Ugg, while distantly related to other languages found on the continent and can be loosely translated, is unique among Ishinic languages, as it is shifted towards a largely consonant vowel structure with few final consonants and only 4 or 5 vowels in total. It also lacks many of the conjunctions used in the other Asari languages, and tense is indicated by use of words preceding verbs instead of verb final conjugations. Ugg also retains a type of personal nomenclature not seen in its relatives. Rather than following a system of patrilineality, as commonly found in Asari and Basque languages, they follow a system of matrilineality, with one surname indicating the individual's birth mother. Over the millennia, the Lachawakans and other hunter-gatherer peoples were slowly displaced by the rising groups of agriculturalists, be it via integration and adoption of farming, or through violent conquest and subjugation. These agriculturalists were in stark contrast to the hunter-gatherers' lack of practiced agriculture or urbanism. The Lachawakans exist as semi-nomads, roaming regular hunting grounds and only establishing semi-permanent dwellings where food is abundant, usually around locations with many fruit trees and abundant sources of protein through things like fish. If you happen to stumble into a Lachawakan village, the traditional diet you would find is largely based on fish and game, supplemented by a variety of fruits, berries, nuts, wild grains, mushrooms, and tubers. While the original tubers of hunter-gatherers ate meats from animals such as wild game, these have become increasingly scarce due to overhunting and poaching by outside forces, and many in the modern day resort to eating fish as an alternative for red meat. In conjunction with the tribes never having a singular identity or political goal, The tribes of Proto-Azari people became increasingly separated geographically and spoke different languages. However, since then, the tribes have existed in loose association with one another, and a single Rockworker or Lachawakan identity has formed over time and solidified in the face of an increasingly agricultural and industrializing global society. Over time, however, the Lachawakans have been forced to contend with the issues of the outside world. This began in the year 1875, when the Lachawakan tribesmen entered an agreement with a number of smaller states within the larger Empire of Ishidor, a giant conglomerate like the Holy Roman Empire that definitely deserves a video of its own someday, to form the Archduchy of Lovers, in order to gain further collective influence within the government of the empire. This was the first time the Lachawakans had had contact with the outside world in millennia, and the adjustments to cooperating with the wider global society have been deliberately slow and gradual. While it changes very little about the internal workings of the tribal society, it was hoped that the Lachawakans would now have more influence politically outside of the wilderness they roam. During the formation of this new union, a new leader figure for the Lachawakans would emerge in Thag Sintorga, who to this day operates as a big woman within the tribe and was once a countess within the imperial government's purview. This position of big man or big woman, known among the Lachawakans as the Gasunga or Gasgrog, is the closest thing the Lachawakans have to a societal hierarchy. These informal leader figures assign soft social power through clout and interpersonal relationships. They generally tend to be one of the most capable or helpful members of society, and the Lachawakans believe this to be the most natural form of governance. As the Lachawakans have been forced into the wider world of external diplomacy, a preeminent big person serves as the de facto ruler and or diplomat for the people group. As the tribal groups were pushed into the wider world, they have had to adjust to the global economy. The Lachawakan economy is based largely on subsistence foraging, with the average person hunting, gathering, fishing, and making products all on their own. There is limited specialization of labor, especially with things like nurchapping, pottery, and shamanry. On rare occasions, some excess products, mainly lumber and fish, are bartered to traders as exports in exchange for what few things the Lachawakans cannot make for themselves. This limits contact with the outside world, yet at the same time is ultimately to the economic detriment of the Lachawakans themselves. This economic detriment, due to the primitive systems in place, affect the tribes very little. The inherently decentralized system prevents any unitary entity from being affected by the other problems suffered from the outside world's nations and states. The decentralized system splits the tribes into semi-permanent dwellings, the most common of which is a kind of circular pit house village known as a tumbum. It is composed entirely of natural materials, mainly stone and earth, with a wood interior and a thatched roof to vent smoke from the fire inside. They're easy to construct, maintain and demolish, and serve as a kind of dwelling that allows other animals to inhabit its crags and plants to grow upon it. These tumbums, while not designed to act as permanent settlements, can over time turn into the prehistoric equivalent of a small town, the larger of which being Ogogrok, which has enough tumbums to house roughly a quarter of the known Lachawakan population. Tumbums are reasonably common, although many Lachawakans, especially during long periods of migration, instead may choose to carry a small tent of sticks, wool, and animal hides. Religious structures, on the other hand, are markedly different. They consist of permanent megalithic structures, usually a henge of concentric boulders or worked stone. Think Stonehenge, for instance. These are aligned with natural astronomic features such as the equinoxes and solstices, and serve as the ritual meeting places for prayer and meditation as well as political meetings. The folk religions worship a number of gods and spirits, almost to an animistic extent, but primarily an earth goddess named Ungulubini, or Lady Earth. Because of their deep religious relationship with nature, they insist on maintaining a hunter-gatherer lifestyle and refuse to establish farms or truly permanent settlements. These traditions are one of the most evident remains of Proto-Asari culture in the modern Lachawakan tribes, and these same religious ceremonies are reflected in the archaeological findings of the Abexilas Naturalist Society's work in southern Kejafros, near the tribal lands of the Lachawakans. This has given the Lachawakans a reputation of being living fossils, and one of the few remnants of, and subsequently one of the few opportunities to study, what prehistoric man lived like hundreds of thousands of years ago. Thank you all very much for watching all the way through. I've been away for the last few months as I've been waiting for new stories to develop in Abexilas, but now some of these stories are finally beginning to flourish, so if you would like to see more, please like and subscribe to quench the YouTube algorithm thirst for clicks. If you have any insightful info I might have missed in this video, please comment down below and I'd greatly appreciate it. I'll see you next time. Until then, have a wonderful day. I've been Rex. Goodbye for now.